of doing so on the traditional territory of the Sunamo First Nation, and we're very grateful for that. Always be appreciative of that fact, and look to do whatever you can to further the process of reconciliation with Canada's Indigenous peoples. I also want to express the Colloquium Planning Committee's sincere gratitude for the moral and financial support this lecture series continues to receive from the Office of the Dean of Arts and Humanities, led by Dr. Marty Stanley. And as it is my wont to do, I always try to come up with a slightly creative way to say thanks to the Dean as well. So Benaradikian, and I often do a little musical performance, and since we're having a musical performance, I thought it would be appropriate to do so. So this is a little ditty entitled, Oh, 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 we boast Marnie is our Dean. It goes like this. Oh, 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 we boast Marnie is our Dean. She's really bright and oh so nice and always super keen. Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. There's more to come, because I thought, this is going to be a really complex three-person musical performance you're going to see. So as an appropriate one of that, I'd like to call on my colleagues Catherine Rowagan and Eliza Gardner, because we're going to do that little song in a three-person round for you, as the official warm-up act for what you're going to see. So we practiced this all at one time, so no guarantees how this is going to go, but fingers crossed. So. Oh, 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 we boast Marnie is our Dean. She's really bright and oh so nice and always super keen. Oh, 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 we boast Marnie is our Dean. She's really bright and oh so nice and always super keen. Oh, 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 we boast Marnie is our Dean. She's really bright and oh so nice and always super keen. She's really bright. Keen. Now, we are entirely a one-hit wonder. That was it, so we have nothing else. And again, that was a super simple three-person musical collaboration. What you're going to see today is one of the most complex musical three-person cooperative endeavors, I guess, that there is in existence. So that was very much the warm-up act, a little bit like Tiny Tim opening for the Beatles. Yeah, best is yet to come. And speaking of best is yet to come, before we get Hans and the students who will be working with him today, Adam Robertson and James Bowman, please welcome to the stage BIU music professor Brent Jarvis, who will be introducing Hans and the student performers. I
just noticed our choral instructor in the audience. Did they pass the audition? Thank you. I was so glad that Hans asked me to introduce him today. I'm supposed to be teaching a class at the moment, and I'm glad to see some of my students are here. As was mentioned, I'm an instructor in the music department here, and I teach piano, and I'm a pianist. And I thought it was a bit incongruous that Hans asked me, because normally I make fun of drummers, so anything to introduce percussion work is a bit challenging. I did tell Hans when he was pursuing his master's that I would show him how to play the woodblock if he wanted. You basically have a woodblock and a stick. Thank you. Are there many drummers or percussionists here tonight? Or this morning? Great. Yeah, so if I make fun of drumming, it's only to set up how important I think it is. Speaking of drummers, though, I was really amazed, despite maybe a lighthearted read at the simplicity of it, was the complexity actually in creating a colloquium that is entitled and mostly made of words. More on the words later. Okay, of course, I don't actually believe that. I believe rhythm to be enormously complex. And those of you who might be in my musicianship classes or my keyboard musicianship classes or have taken piano lessons with me know how much we stress it actually. It's probably the most fundamental aspect, despite it largely being overlooked or perhaps put aside at times in musicological discourse in favor of conversations about form or rhythm or melody and stuff. When in fact, all those things presuppose rhythm. It's so implied when you talk about form that you talk about rhythm. And even when you talk about harmony, you were talking about rhythm in terms of like periodicity of waves and ratios between them. So I think we're going to be delighted, hopefully, with rhythm being in the forefront for an opportunity for us to marvel in its splendor and complexity, which Hans will also talk about, and including some of the words that I got that I think are made up. He'll be talking about later. I better be careful though, because Hans has informed me he'd like me to participate later, and we'll see how that goes. Anyways, yes, Hans, Adam, and James are going to be performing a tune called Trio per Uno by Nebojsa Zivkovic, which I read online as one of the most widely performed pieces for percussion trio, and was intended to represent the perfection of wildness in an archaic ritual cult. So I look forward to that. Hans will be talking more about entrainment, beat induction, and isochronous pulse, which I look forward to knowing what they are, because at the moment I think they're made up. Anyways, I won't say too much more because Hans is going to have things to say, but I did need to introduce the piece because they're going to come out and play immediately without speaking. I introduced the piece. I would now like to introduce the band. Adam Robertson is a fourth-year music student at VIU and a professional drummer, and I can attest to that, having played gigs with him personally, and he got paid. James Bowman is a recent VIU graduate and a now professional freelance drummer, and Hans Verhoeven is a colleague of mine in the music department, as well as a colleague as being a professional musician. He teaches music theory, survey of North American music styles from 1619 to 1900, and history of American popular music from 1900. I should also mention that I think as we have a number of people from the community at large here also, that Hans has been conducting outreach for VIU, and I think it's been enormously successful in terms of raising awareness of the program we have. I think some of the students, I noticed a number of first years, are any of the first years here right now can recall having Hans come to your high school and do outreach? Oh, I see nodding heads, but no hands. Okay, that's fine. So I think it's been very productive. I've had the pleasure of participating in some of them, as well as some of our students and recent graduates. I just wanted to mention that as Hans's affiliation with the institution beyond teaching, but including outreach. An event like this, which is actually sort of like on the periphery of his role as a jazz instructor, to include the complexity of classical percussion too, I think is a great testament to his devotion to musical education. But anyways, I'll stop talking now. Hans Verhoeven, Adam Robertson, James Bowman.
James Bowman on percussion, please. And Adam Robertson on percussion. I'd like to extend a huge thank you to both of them for their time and their dedication in learning this piece of music and practicing it. It's extremely difficult. As you can see, many things can go wrong during the course of something like this. So we never quite know how it's going to come off, no matter how many times we work on it and practice it. So I also want a beer. Yeah. So more than anything, this presentation is an excuse for us to do what we just did, but of course I need to speak a little bit, so I'll get into that now. What I'd like to talk about today is the phenomenon of entrainment. Entrainment is just the synchronization of organisms to an external perceived rhythm or isochronous pulse. An isochronous pulse is just a pulse that is occurring at equal time intervals. So that could be many things, right? Interestingly, humans are the only species for which all individuals experience entrainment. No other primates that have been tested thus far show this predilection for entrainment. And some parrots, for some reason, some parrots exhibit aspects of entrainment, and there's one parrot in particular, his name is Snowball, who's got a very, very good sense of time and has been shown to exhibit genuine dance. And Snowball actually adjusts his dance movements to changes in rhythm and tempo. So he's genuinely matching the beat that he is hearing. So that's the definition of entrainment. So interestingly enough, humans are the only ones that seem to do this of all the primates. So what do you need to be able to do to entrain yourself to an isochronous pulse? Well, it's a process of beat induction. You're hearing a pulse that may not be explicitly there, but nonetheless, you can feel it and you can hear it. This piece, Trio Peruno, has it's a piece based on mixed meters. So, for instance, this first piece that we played, our count is kind of like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, we're counting like that in our heads, and the pulse is constantly shifting, but the piece is composed in such a way that it has a perceptible form to the listener, and we sort of go away from a pulse and we come back to a pulse, and there's sort of a tension and release going on there. But basically, it's just beat induction. You're listening to rhythms or music, and you're hearing where the main pulse is. And that gets exhibited and expressed by humans in a variety of ways. Dance being an obvious one, but humans use entrainment to all sorts of effects. So, and work, synchronizing the movements of people to make work more efficient and more productive. And music is used by so many African cultures in so many different ways. Many African cultures, particularly West African cultures, are sort of said to live their lives musically. So music accompanies many parts of people's day. And so if I could get the first slide, this is a clip of Sakuma people breaking the soil up for planting. I believe these people live in Tanzania, And you're going to hear one person playing a single string fiddle and singing, and then you're going to see and hear all of these people working in this field and trained, breaking up the soil all at the same time. So if we could run that now, please. So, as you can see, the speed with which they're breaking up the soil and clearing the land is remarkable. And it's quite a long clip, but as the camera pans back the other way, some of the workers are actually like, the hoe will come down and then they'll do like a cool flip and bring it back up. So, making the work easier, making the work lighter, making the work more efficient, and feeding off the energy of your partners, your colleagues. This is just one example of sort of the power of entrainment where the result is greater than the sum of the parts. You can well imagine galley slaves rowing in the Mediterranean with the drummer beating at the time to make sure everyone's rowing at the same speed. That's just, I mean, there's a multitude of examples that we can all think of. The next clip is, again, entrainment music being used to entrain people to accomplish work. This is from the Parchman Farm Prison in the United States. So these are African people who were kidnapped and stolen from their homeland and enslaved, brought over to America and made to work. Alan Lomax has a huge collection, an archive of music, work songs, field hollers, this kind of thing, available through the Library of Congress, I believe. And this is sort of interesting to note. Again, you're going to hear people breaking up the ground and singing to sort of accompany that rhythm. And this is maybe just a little bit of an opportunity for me to plug the documentary 13, which I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's available on Netflix. And it's all about the 13th Amendment to the US Constitution, which really sort of laid the foundation for the formation of the prison industrial complex, which has so monstrously and unjustly incarcerated so many people of color as well as indigenous people. So if you watch that documentary, you might think twice about where you do your Christmas shopping. It's very instructive and interesting. So anyways, if we could roll this clip, please. To the rhythm of people working, singing. Interestingly enough, also these work songs, as they sort of come to be known, were also often used by captive Africans, enslaved African people, the lyrics could contain messages, sort of coded messages that they could use to communicate with each other over long distances. So there was a sort of underground communication network, despite the horrors of slavery that were sort of visited upon them. So a really powerful aspect of their culture that was transplanted to North America and has informed so much of what we do here in the jazz program at VRU. Cool. Okay. Another sort of interesting example. I don't have one to show you, but blacksmiths in the past used to work. Usually there would be one blacksmith turning the piece of metal that was being hammered, and then anywhere up to 3 blacksmiths taking it in turns to hammer that piece of metal to accomplish the work faster. Because of course, the more hammer strokes you're able to do while the metal is hot, the sooner you're able to finish the job. So that was a common thing. It is still a common thing in a lot of West African countries where metallurgy is very prominent, and blacksmiths are quite a respected sort of group of society. So you'll have people who clang, 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 working on a single piece. Again, that's using entrainment to coordinate the movement so people don't hammer each other's hands. It's similar to some of the parts of this movement of Trio Ferro that we played for you. Okay, so dance, entrainment, work, entrainment. Another use of entrainment expressed by humans is in war. Using drums and using rhythm to coordinate the movement of people, to synchronize people to march, and also to actually synchronize movements of attack and movements of regiments. So there's a very long history of the drums in the military, especially the snare drum, which is, for those of you who don't know, so that instrument comes from originally Switzerland and France, and those sort of rat-a-tat-tat kind of rhythms that you hear, that's like the 20th Century Fox sort of introduction to their theme song. We've all heard this kind of thing before, but those rhythms that we play on the snare drum, they're patterns of sticking, so patterns of rights and lefts with certain embellishments and certain specific things that we do. Those are known as rudiments. The rudiments and military snare drum date back to Swiss mercenaries. The Swiss mercenaries were armed with very long pole arms, so great big long pikes, and a group of mercenaries or a regiment armed with these great big long spears to attack requires a great deal of precision and coordination. And so their movements were coordinated to the time that was played on snare drum. And then specific snare drum rudiments would be used to communicate specific movements to be made. So it's basically like not dissimilar, I would say, to some of the martial arts dancing that you might recognize from Brazil as capoeira, but I digress. So another great example of entrainment is coming from war and military tradition. Now, this has moved far beyond the drums being used to coordinate regiments, to coordinate movements of attack, and to make people march. It's turned into its own professional pastime, and it's sort of a global phenomenon with people working as professional rudimental snare drummers all around the world. So if I could get the next clip, this is the top secret drum corps in a practice. The top secret drum corps is out of Basel, Switzerland, so these people are connected to the very roots of what it is that they're doing, and they're still going strong. So you'll see a very high degree of entrainment amongst the snare drummers. So if we can play that now. and precise degree of entrainment. That's the whole point. The top secret is they compete to be as precise and complex as possible. And the idea is to sort of, the individual disappears and becomes a limb, if you will, of one single organism. So that degree of entrainment is what we're starting for here when we're playing percussion trio, percussion duo music, and it's extremely difficult. The amount of practice that goes into this is epic, I would say. Sometimes entrainment gets expressed along cultural lines, and this is a very interesting phenomenon. So could we play the next clip? He turned the beat around. So, okay, so this is Harry Connick Jr., native son of New Orleans, so born and raised and steeped in all that great and amazing and genius African American music and traditions, playing in France. So in African American music and a lot of African music, the strong beats are beat 2 and 4. We call it a backbeat, or sometimes fat back, if you're Bernard Purdie or James Brown. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And this was expressed in music in New Orleans, the very first jazz music. We play 2 and 4 on hi-hat. It's the strong beat. And that transitioned into blues, rhythm and blues, and rock and roll, and now hip hop and funk. You know, you used to hear kick, snare, snare, kick, snare, snare, kick, snare, 2 and 4 on the strong beat. Boom, tap, do do do, tap, do do, tap, do do do, tap, do 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this French audience, different. So for predominantly white Europeans, native Europeans, ethnic Europeans, the strong beats are 1 and 3. So here's the culture clash. This band from New Orleans is playing New Orleans music, and the French audience is, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's where they think they should be clapping, where culturally that's where they're used to clapping. And it feels so awkward for Harry Connick Jr. that as soon as he's done singing the melody, he plays a bar of 3/4 or a bar of 5/4. It's just you take away one beat so that you flip it. So if I could get everybody just not too loud, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Now you're clapping 2 and 4. So that's what Harry Connick Jr. does. And I find it amazing and fascinating that the French don't switch back. It's like a part of their subconscious, the part that is perhaps responsible for entrainment, goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's way better. It's kind of interesting, right? So, and I'm sure like all the musicians in the band were like, phew, because it's really, really hard to swing and groove and play a backbeat on 2 and 4 when your audience is doing that. Kind of preventing you. So that's sort of one example of entrainment being expressed along cultural lines. And another one is the next example. So if I could get that, please, Robert. So this is a recording of Ewe people from southeastern Ghana and Togo, playing one particular type of music. They have many. Their music is known for its rhythmic complexity, and it sort of it presents this idea of, we could call it maybe poly-entrainment, or multiple perspectives of entrainment. As you listen to this, there are like a multitude of pulses to which you can entrain yourself, but they are all, and they're hearing those things and experiencing them because they have to play these cross rhythms, interlocking parts. But they're all aligning themselves to that bell, that double bell. And that bell is the nexus around which all the other rhythms are entrained. So if we could just roll the clip again. So that that's where the time, that's where the pulse actually is. But then all these other pulses present themselves and create this network of interlocking pulses to which the listener or the dancer or the solo drummer, who plays a more dynamic improvised part, can be entrained, so that you're actually sort of navigating through different pulses that are all coexisting, and they run at different tempos, but they're all mathematically related to each other. And interestingly enough, that metal bell is really the precursor, I would say, to the ride cymbal in jazz music, which is of course the root of all the music, all American popular music. That metal instrument that cuts through all the rest of the sound. And it's a triplety sort of feel, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. There's the ride cymbal pattern. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So it's all very much connected, right? At this point, I'm going to get Adam and Ben to help me yet again, and I'm going to sort of demonstrate, hopefully, this phenomenon of multiple perspectives of entrainment. So if you guys want to beat by some drums, maybe take like something different. It should be like a bongo and like the rim of the bass drum. Okay. So here's another part. These are just two parts of a rhythm from Ghana, and it's using that same bell pattern. And then there's a sort of counter rhythm that's played by the toms, and we're going to try and experience entrainment with this rhythm and entrainment with that rhythm. So I'll just get you to highlight the triplety bits from here. If you could sort of clap that pulse, and then I'll nod you out, and I'll get you to highlight the eighth note bits from here. And if you could clap that pulse, and then we'll try to bring them in and put them together. Okay? And you can clap along with whoever is clapping. Try to get your brain to hear this stuff. So, okay. example of what's going on entrainment-wise in a completely different culture. Thank you, Matt. That's good. So that sort of entrainment as it applies to music specifically, but entrainment can sort of, well, we can look at entrainment in a sort of a broader sense. We all live our lives by the clock, right? Which is running at 60 beats per minute, but that's just one tempo. I mean, the metronome goes from 80 all the way up to 240 or 300 or whatever it is. So, but our lives, all of our lives, we're entrained on this. Right? Gotta be at a certain place at a certain time. So, but again, that's also cultural too, because there are other cultures where they don't measure time in the same way that we do, which is really interesting. Other sort of instances of entrainment, I suppose, would be like, you could say it sort of figuratively, like where you're sort of on the same page as someone, or you're flowing in the same sort of, you're understanding each other's thoughts. Also, of course, physically in sports, like if you're a dragon boat racer, or if you might think about relay races, where the person who's about to pick up the baton from the person who's currently holding the baton, there's a moment there where those two people have to be perfectly entrained and running at the exact same speed. Otherwise, there's tripping and all this sort of stuff. Disaster ensues. So much like in Trio Peruno, disaster raises its head many times and is narrowly avoided. So it's the more precise it is, the greater the chance for epic disaster to occur. But yeah, I would always notice when I was a kid that my dad and I would go for lots and lots of walks, and I couldn't help but walk at the same speed as him. I would always match his stride, and that's something that I do with other people too. My friend Martin, he's great. I love walking around in the city with him because he's how fast he walks. And we'll be like late for a gig, and he's like, he just walks like that. And I just immediately slow down and train myself with his rhythm. And for some reason it feels better to me. You also see that sometimes someone running or jogging with their dog or walking their dog. I mean, the rhythm is not the same. It's like a polyrhythm because the dog has shorter limbs, obviously, and has to take, whatever, 7 3/4 steps for every 2 that the human does or whatever. But it's regular and consistent, and you go forward like this. So there's entrainment happening there as well. My dog, that's Bear. He doesn't do that. He marches to a different drum. And yet, he really likes the drums, and he's afraid of fireworks and has anxiety issues around fireworks and sometimes the oven beeping, and he'll start shaking and gets quite upset. And I've noticed that if I sit down on a practice pad, which is like a rubber pad for me to just work on rudiments, and I start playing it at a sort of regular tempo, it calms him right down. He can go from completely freaking out, panting, drooling, shaking like crazy. In about 10 minutes, he's completely calm. And he's become very fond of the drums. If I could just get the next clip. Entrainments are really, it's there all the time, and it's something that brings people together. And it's an interesting phenomenon. So if I have time, how much more time do I have? Can someone tell me? Oh, okay, great. I have half an hour. Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to put all this into practice. And I'm going to get my friend Brent to come back up and help me. You all know Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? Okay, well, to sort of dissect it technically, just from a melodic structure standpoint, the form is A-A-B-A. Each section is 8 bars long. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 4, 7, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 2, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, 4. And then it goes to something different, bridge. Then back to A. So, okay. It's an A-A-B-A form. It's a 32 bar long form, right? 16 plus 16. 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8. That was redundant. Anyways, so what I'm going to do, and this is what we do as drummers and as professional musicians when we're improvising. We improvise over a structure that is fixed. So we're superimposing something that is dynamic and in flux over top of something that is not, something that is static. And the thing that makes it all work together is when everyone in the band and everyone in the audience is entrained to the same pulse. So I'm going to play Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on the drum set, and Brent is going to clap on the backbeat for me throughout my solo. And I'm going to begin soloing and playing rhythms more the way I sort of hear them, which is not in such a strict, repetitious way, but almost more like a babbling brook. And I want you to try and keep track of the form of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, because I thought, what better way to ring in the Christmas holiday on a day of rampant and unadulterated consumerism and materialistic capitalism than with a song that likely takes its main idea from pagan, indigenous, Scandinavian reindeer herders' use of probably psychoactive hallucinogenic mushrooms. That's all kind of true. So every time we finish 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, 4, the first strain of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, one of my assistants is going to hold up A1. And then when we're done A1, at the beginning of the next 8 bars, it would be A2. And then we get to the bridge, B for bridge, because there's only one. And then, of course, A3. And we're all going to try to stay together, no matter what happens on the drum. And then we'll see if we can come back and that'll be that. Now, before I play this, I'd just like to, because after I play this, then we can take questions and everything. But before I do that, I'd just like to thank Brent Jarvis for the lovely introduction. James Gilmer, Alan Robertson for the introduction. As well as Catherine, Ravi, Robin, and Ariel up in the group. Here be A1, here be A2, and A3. Make sure you hold them up, like out. And you're going to be B as well. This is my version of a PowerPoint, by the way. we all stay together?
Yeah.
That's okay. Cool. So that's basically how it works, and it's very, very gratifying when we come out of this tension that's created by this sort of cacophony of conflicting cross rhythms, and then they're resolved onto beat one, and we learn, and you get that feeling, that pop of energy. Yes, we're all still together, and everyone is on skate. But it's easier said than done, but that's what's going on. So next time you hear one of these great young musicians playing, taking a drum solo or taking any kind of solo, try to stay with them and do your part to keep it all together, because it's very, very fun for us. So thank you. Anybody have any? What? You go.
Thanks again to Hans and to Adam and to James for the performances, and Hans' very enlightening look at entertainment and its variety of contexts, the work, the culture, and what have you. Really, really fascinating. I'm sure you have lots of questions, and we're simply open to do that. And when you have a question, if you'd raise your hand, maybe we have the house lights up a little bit so that you can see a little bit more, and then have the roll wagon, hand mic over there, so that when you have questions, everyone can hear it. While you're thinking about what questions you'd like to ask, though, I do want to remind you that this year's Arts and Humanities Colloquium series will continue in the new year, Friday, January 24th. At that time, my history department colleagues, Dr. Rollwagon and Dr. Cheryl Warsh, will present Justice Through Strength and Courage, Television and North American Cold War Childhood in the 1950s, which is an examination of how Cold War ideology inserted itself into American children's television through their look at the 1950 series Countdown Midnight. Tom and T. Wicks sound really exciting. So hopefully it's on Friday the 24th. All right, we have the first question. All right, fire away.
Thank you very much. That was very important. Do you want to speak about brainwave and heart rhythm entrainment?
Pardon me?
Brainwave and heart rhythm entrainment.
What about them?
Yeah.
What about them?
Do you want to speak about that?
I'm not like I'm not a neuromusicologist. I'm not an academic at all.
Oh.
So I don't know anything about all that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I'm a drummer. Only know what I know. Sorry.
I've got a big voice.
Yeah, I can hear you.
You mentioned, or you gave us some wonderful examples of entrainment, mainly with men, but also in farms of enslaved, slaves from Africa. Were there any groups of women only, or?
Oh, of course, absolutely, yeah. Like, just to take like the example of Ewe people from Ghana, Ewe people have a very serious and rigorous sort of etiquette to their culture. There are certain types of music that men are not allowed to play, and only women are allowed to play, including like a lot of drumming ensembles. There are other types of music that women are not allowed to play at certain times of the month because that whole thing is going on. And of course, probably the coolest example of entrainment comes from a story that my friend Winston Watani told me. Winston was, and I think he is, a part-time student now, but he went through the First Nations studies program. And he told me a story about doing a canoe journey. And they were coming down from, I think, the northern tip of the island, and they were in Powell River. They were leaving Powell River and heading south. And Winston was in a canoe with mostly women and some kids. And there were other canoes that were mostly comprised of, strapping young men. And Winston had been taught a paddling song by some elders for this exact activity. And the canoes that were full of the strapping young men, it's sort of competitive. You're trying to see who can go the fastest. And these guys were digging the paddles in and making short, fast strokes and breaking the backs. And Winston's canoe was being left behind. And he said, "Don't worry, everybody, I have the solution." So he started singing this paddling song, and you're supposed to dig in the paddle and take it out to the rhythm of the melody. Everyone starts to sing along because it's a repetitive strain. What happens when everybody in a great big dugout canoe like that paddles at the same time is when your paddle goes in, and you pull, you're stirring in a bunch of air into the water. That air then needs to bubble up. So the paddles at the front of the canoe create this great big mattress cushion of bubbles. And once everybody gets aligned and trained in the same rhythm, that creation of that mattress of bubbles becomes constant, and it lifts the canoe up out of the water, significantly eliminating drag, and then you just have to hold that rhythm. And some people were getting excited, we're moving. When it just keeps going slow and steady, and they're coasting on top of the water, and they started passing like the canoes with these young strapping men in them. So, I mean, that's just one example of female entrainment. But, I mean, you know, just thinking, like, off the top of my head, I had a relationship with a woman in Montreal who moved in to a new 3-bedroom apartment with these other young women. And interestingly enough, their menstrual cycle is all in training. And they were all, that was all happening at the same time. Stuff like that is like amazing. But yeah, the examples that I played just happen to show males. It's not like entrainment is a specifically male trait whatsoever. Yeah. I just don't have enough time to show all the things. Yeah.
What is the broadest example of training that you know? For example, like annual cycles might be just habits for us, perhaps not actual entrainment. What's like the longest example of actual entrainment that you can think of?
Like the longest running or the slowest
The
pulse?
slowest pulse.
Oh, well, I guess, you know, the seasons, probably. Yeah, probably the seasons. That causes, you know, animals are sort of entrained with the changes in the weather and the lengthening days and the shortening days. And, you know, we're animals too. You know, we sort of try to sometimes work against those slower, much more ancient rhythms. Absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, like, polyrhythms are being expressed around us all the time. For instance, a solar or a lunar eclipse is an expression of 3 celestial bodies that are all traveling, moving at different rhythms. But just like the windshield wipers on a school bus, every once in a while they go like this, and like this, dead together. So I don't know what the slowest pulse that's out there. I don't know what that would be, but those ones certainly seem slower to me for sure. Or like certain asteroids coming back and traveling through certain parts of the solar system that result in meteor showers and so on and so forth. That kind of thing. Yeah.
So do you think that environmental entrainment informs cultural entrainment and vice versa?
Definitely.
Or,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and of course, cultural entrainment has an impact on the environment. It would seem to me that with all our sort of fossil fuel burning technology, we can lengthen our days, and we can make more spaces warm to us, for us, than normally would be. And so we've sort of altered our own rhythms. You know, in the winter, a lot of us are sort of suffering right now. We're so tired, but we have to keep going because, you know, we want to just turn on the light and keep working. Perhaps before those kinds of technologies existed, people would have been moving at a different rhythm at certain times of the year. And then, of course, you know, obviously the impacts of burning fossil fuels to enable us to alter the rhythm that we're operating under
day off, what do you think about?
Do I ever have a day off without any beats?
Any beats, anything, any pattern, any rhythmic thing? Is that
Never.
always have that pulse, inner pulse?
Always had, yeah. When I was a little kid, and this still happens, but there was a sort of a general store on the way home from school, and my mom was a teacher, so I'd get a lift with her. And they have these coolers, you know, those stand-up ones with the sliding doors. And these are older models, so the motors that run that keep them cool, there's this cool like ticking thing, and they all are going at different speeds. So I every time we go there, I hear this like. You know, just, and I'd be like, immediately like hear rhythm and in that. So, yeah, no, I never, and I dream about it, and I never have one. Although sometimes I would like it, but it just doesn't. Yeah.
Rhythms that particularly annoy you, or?
Are there rhythms that particularly annoy me?
Sounds that would annoy you?
Sounds that particularly annoy me? I would say like Despacito by and rhythms that annoy me would be like the audience clapping on 1 and 3. I don't really listen to like industrial music, and I don't listen to heavy metal music. Sometimes I'll check it out, like if a student or a friend or something is like, you know, dig this, and okay, I'll dig it for a minute. But then I gotta turn it off because I very much dislike a lot of technology. I don't like electronics. I like acoustic instruments. That I like the process of figuring out how to make them come alive and sound like they're alive. Yeah, that's another sort of instance of entrainment. You know, back to your question about women, like female shaman drumming is key to so many shamanic or spiritual or religious experiences. It's what allows the shaman to go in a state of trance. And it's often described as the sort of the ladder, that the rhythm, the drum is the ladder that they use to climb into the heavens, but also to get back, so they don't get stuck out there in the Milky Way, because that would be bad too. Yeah. But yeah, I don't, all that industrial stuff is not really my thing. But it doesn't mean it's bad, it just means I don't respond well to it. Pardon?
When you go off to your own rhythms, right? When you were playing like,
When I was playing on Rudolph?
yeah, when you go off into your own head, right? Different rhythms. What does bring you back? What's the trigger to?
Oh, it's just tension and release. So, no, like when I was soloing, I knew exactly where I was, and I knew exactly where that 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was singing the melody of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in my head the entire time that I was doing all that stuff. So that's that multiple perspectives of entrainment. That's like that poly-entrainment. That's what we're doing. That's what these guys are learning to do. And it probably has its highest expression in Elvin Jones. John Coltrane's drummer, the great jazz drummer.
So you're always counting.
I'm not counting it. I'm feeling it. I'm listening and I'm hearing the melody. I'm constantly hearing, like, when Brent's clapping on 2 and 4, I'm hearing that the whole time in my head. But I'm not counting. I'm not going 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. I'm singing the melody because the melody has, what happens when you begin doing this more and more is you begin to be able to physically feel the length of 4 bars at any tempo, the length of 8 bars, The length of 12 bars long has a certain feeling. It's like as if you were to close your eyes and put your hand on something and say, that's Velcro, that's silk, that's velvet. It's just a physical feeling.
What about like when you're doing the trio? When you're switching time to 3/4,
Oh, yeah.
5/4, right?
Yeah.
Or are you counting?
Yeah, big time. And like this first one is so tricky because we have to play really difficult rhythms. We have to entrain ourselves with each other and with what's on the page, and we also have to yell at specific times. So I'm in my head, I'm going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, hi ho, like stuff like that. Ha ho, 2, 3, 4, you know. But I'm still saying ho to like 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, bam, and then I have to release on a particular. Like we can demonstrate, I think, a little section if you guys want to. We can do that thing. Oh, I don't need it. I'll just use these two. Oh, we're going to do the section at 27, just repeat it. Okay, so we'll just loop it, like we were with the other. I'll give you 2 bars of the read. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's really hard. So in a situation like that, I'm counting frantically, with much terror and trepidation. And what's really, really interesting in a situation like that is humans have to work or seem to have to work very, very hard at being perfectly entrained with each other. And this is something that happens in the music program all the time. Bass players are yelling at drummers because they're speeding up. Drummers are yelling at bass players because they're slowing down. Everyone's yelling at the saxophone players because they're doing both at the same time. Hi, Leo. So, it seems to be really, really difficult for us to hear the pulse as if we're all limbs of one brain. So Adam tends to hear the pulse a bit slower than I do. And I'm on him all the time. Like, you're slowing down, you're slowing down. It's a bit late, it's a bit late. James is pretty much right down the middle. I like to push it a little bit. I like that feeling of forward momentum. And those discrepancies can cause, in something where there's so little room for error, those discrepancies can cause major problems and can knock you off where you think you are. Because it's a construct. You're just like you're holding it in your head. And it seems to be very difficult for people to, you can try it. Like look at your watch, get the tempo, and then just like go away for 2 minutes, but try to keep 60 beats per minute, and then go back and look at your watch and see how far ahead you got. Usually it's like, yeah, it's a really interesting thing, but the effect of total and very subtle and refined entrainment is amazing. It's Bob Marley and the Wailers, it's James Brown with Clyde Stubblefield, it's Motown, where they usually have 2 drummers playing at the same time, Tony Allen with Fela Kuti from Nigeria, Paul Chambers with Phil Jones, Al Jackson Jr. and Booker T and the MGs. The groove, like when people just entrain, really entrain, it creates this spinning energy that is infectious. And I think that's one of the biggest aspects of African and African American music that saw it spread around the world so quickly. With the Spanish-American War and with World War I, and having African American regimental bands playing in Europe, people were freaking out because they'd never heard music being played with that much rhythmic depth and subtlety and precision and intensity.
I would have been intrigued at some point to see your music, big screen, like just to see what it looks like.
It looks like, it looks scary. It's just lots of black dots, lots of numbers, accents, dynamics, and then with like German instructions for screaming and yelling.
I've always wondered whether the 8/4/12 form is only located in our Western culture, or is it a universal thing with the way you think? The size of the.
I don't know. I think I think in Western culture there are odd forms, and I think in non-Western cultures there are even forms. I think it's just a big mix. Certainly some cultures, like Balkan cultures, most of the music is like in 7 or 11 or 5. And then when they try to play in 4/4, it sounds weird. Interestingly enough, it's like very unnatural for them. Like much more so than the French clapping on 1 and 3. It's like for them 4/4 is a strange construct. And for us, it's so rooted in like work and dance and military martial things. Just that binary 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
On something to that, James Mark did a presentation a number of years ago on perfect pitch.
Yeah.
And he said, is it a benefit or a curse? And I'm wondering, is there such a thing as perfect rhythm? And I know that you set a metronome and you get used to that metronome, and then you don't use it anymore because you've internalized what that beat is. Yeah. Do people have perfect rhythm? If I say, okay, give me 180, or give me like 175, can you do that off of that?
Yeah, there are some people that are like that out there. I've definitely heard of that. I would say the people who have perfect rhythm are the people who can keep such a strong pulse, but then add subtleties and complexities to that pulse where certain things are a little bit off-center, but consistently. So I'm thinking of like Amir Thompson, also known as Questlove. If you listen to D'Angelo's Voodoo, you're going to hear a groove that kind of pulls apart, but does so consistently. Certain instruments are a little bit ahead and certain instruments are a little bit behind, off-center. I think that's the most intriguing thing about entrainment and about the very best time players is that they can hold the center and then actually place their notes around it. So it sounds somewhat imperfect, but in a perfect way. It's a paradox, right? I think that's what humans like. Otherwise it would just be computer music and there would be no need for drummers. But if you listen to like Bernard Purdie, or you listen to Elvin Jones, or Tony Williams, or Jack DeJohnette, or any of these really, really amazing rhythm players, it's perfectly flawed, and it's flawed consistently. So I think we like that, and we need that as humans. It's when someone's trying to when drummers are trying to describe a really nice cymbal, they contradict themselves like crazy. Just like when someone's trying to describe the taste of a really fine wine. It's dry, it's sweet and bitter and really earthy, but it's got this bright airiness to it. You're just like, what? That's totally contradicting the information. But that's what it is. It's all of that together, which is, I think if you look at nature, it's an increasing tendency towards complexity, coexisting all in the same moment. So to have things boiled down to some sort of formula or logarithm is to dehumanize ourselves and in this case the music. And I think that's a big problem with so much of the the popular music that's being made today is being made with computers, and some people know how to use the computers to get that complexity that I'm talking about, but a lot of people just press button, press button, press button, line everything up, and it just sounds, it's completely devoid of soul. Yeah.
Testing. Whoa. You spoke in a wonderful fashion about playing ahead of the beat, playing behind the beat, the sort of push you get of where your dynamic is with the unheard click, which is great. I read a really, to me, interesting article a couple of years ago where some psychologists had done a study on drummers' rhythm, and they found that rather than having a consistent tempo, say 132 or something, and everybody plays a bit ahead of it, a little bit behind it, they tended to gradually speed and slow in a sort of a consistent fashion. So they might start out at, say, 130, and then after a while it's 131, then it's down to 120, and then it's up to 131. And they analyzed rhythms, and it looked like as if there was something like a low frequency oscillator pulse, like that, which gradually sped and slowed the unheard clock, which you're clocking to. And I thought this was pretty interesting, rather than just straight push against that, the idea of this L4, and I just wonder if there are any comments about that.
Well, I feel like I just addressed exactly what you're saying, but yeah, when it breathes, it's at its most intriguing. I think humans we just come with this pattern recognition software. We love patterns, but the problem with patterns is that it's as soon as your brain recognizes a pattern, it goes, oh, pattern, and then it just sets it on repeat, and then you can just run it in the background, in the periphery. And it seems to me like part of what you're describing is setting up a pattern, but then introducing slight variations that will continue to sort of engage people and grab their attention. So that's a source of seems to be a source of great delight for humans, not just in rhythm, not just in harmony and melody, but in art and visual art and all kinds of things, speech and writing.
Okay, well, thanks again very much to James and Adam and Hans. If you have further questions, they'll probably be around for a little while. You can come down and talk to them.